I wanted to post a picture with a naked breast and I stopped. I couldn't. If the recruiter comes, what do they think of me?
That pause made me realize that I don't really know what my personal brand is or how to balance authenticity with professionals' goals. If you are feeling invisible while looking for the job or wondering how to show up without sabotaging your career, this episode is for you. Welcome to How to Get That Job with me, your host, Kiedra. This is a project about the personal job search journey, where I talk to career experts, try their advice, and show everything for you, the fails, the wins, and everything in between. My guest today is Dominika Vensuta, a professor, international speaker, and founder of Persona Incognita, a personal branding and employee advocacy training company. For nearly a decade, she dedicated her work to empower professionals to showcase authentic selves with clarity, confidence, and purpose. And this episode is not about becoming someone else, it's about becoming visible on our own terms. And if you know someone who needs to hear this, share this episode with them because sharing is caring.
Hi, Dominika.
Hi, Diadra.
It's so nice to see you here. Really. I will tell a
Sip.
small personal quick story why I'm so happy to see you here. Because when I was looking for the guest speaker for this episode, I wanted a professional. And sometimes you start looking by networking with your friends and people you know and asking, so do you know who could be a good person who could speak about personal branding? And all seven of them, guess what? Mentioned your name, Dominica. I guess you did were good on your brand.
Well, I'm happy to hear that. It's very nice to hear this insight from you, Diadra. Thank you.
Amazing. Okay, Dominika, so let's jump. Let's start with the basic because I'm genuinely confused. I used to think personal branding was more for influencers, but I keep hearing from career experts that everyone needs to work on their personal brand to stand out from the crowd. How would you define personal branding for someone who's not a marketer, not an entrepreneur, just a regular person looking for a job?
This is a great question. Since I come from academia, that's kind of like my background. I love starting with kind of like the definitions, right? The theoretical insights that are later on applied to into practice. But in general, when we start talking about personal branding, I think we have to start with the branding itself. And the very official definition of a brand provided by American Marketing Association is that brand is basically some kind of a term, symbol, or some kind of visual elements that distinguish certain products, services, or organizations from the others, right? So if we kind of like try to transfer this definition to personal brands, we would say like, oh, it's probably about appearance. It's probably how we look like. And because the way we look like, the way we have names, it allows other people to distinguish ourselves from the others. And to be honest, I don't like this definition of the brand, even though it's like very official. I usually go with the another definition because in literature, again, we'll find a lot of them. So my favorite definition of a brand is by this marketing consultant called Martin Neumeier, who basically says that a brand is a gut feeling that we have about some sort of product, service, organization, etc. So if we transfer that to the context of people and personal brands, we can, in like very simple terms, say that a personal brand is a gut feeling that other people have about us, right? This gut feeling, it can be this first impression. If we know somebody for a very long time, it's that opinion that we have shaped about that other person in a very long time, right? So it's all about those gut feeling. It's all about the emotions, right? I see someone on the street, I see the person for the first time. I don't know that person. I don't know what they do, but I have a certain gut feeling. I see somebody posting on LinkedIn. I don't know that person. I'll have a gut feeling. I know somebody for a very long time, my colleague, I've worked with them. I have a certain opinion about them. And that's a personal brand. It's kind of the combination of the identity and image that we try to portray ourselves to probably. So that would be my definition. A personal brand is kind of like a noun. If we talk about the personal branding as in process, it's kind of, we could say that it's establishing and promoting who you are, basically, in very simple terms.
Do you agree with me that many women usually wait until they feel ready or expert enough to show up online, because personal branding, it's usually showing up online.
That's a very good question and a very good topic to talk about, because a lot of people think about personal branding as in showing up online, whereas social media channels is just one of the channels. We can show up in a very like small circles offline, and still it's like personal branding, right? The way we talk, the way we dress, the way we kind of introduce ourselves, etc. So that's like one of the misconceptions, but I guess we'll come to that later. But coming back to your question about women and being ready and waiting for something to happen in order to show up, yes, yes, perfect moment, exactly. So yes, there is this pattern. A lot of people think that okay, I'm not good enough. I can only talk about something if I'm expert. What is an expert? And in my opinion, we become experts when we tell ourselves we are experts in a certain field. Like, who is there to judge? So, but definitely, yeah, there is this barrier, and a lot of people they have to overcome it. In my experience, they overcome this barrier if they dare to try.
I want us to freeze for the moment and everyone to the listeners to sink in this information that it's less about being polished and perfect and more about being authentic and I guess even consistent in some way. So I have to ask you, how do you know if what you are sharing online or what you're sharing to other people offline is helping or hurting your personal brand? Now, let me tell you why I'm asking that. Okay. This is the real story. As I mentioned in the beginning, I have this brand in Lithuania, which is called The Size Doesn't Matter. It's about empowering women to enjoy their life without taking too much notice of their body. And I used to show lots of even daring images. And now, since I started this job search, I wanted to post this one picture. Okay, I'll be honest. Since we are honest here, authentical, I wanted to post a picture with a bare naked breast. Wonderful. And I stopped. I couldn't. And I thought, okay, if the recruiter comes and suddenly they see my hanging body part, what do they think of me? So that's my question. How do I know that what I'm sharing online is it really helping or hurting my personal brand?
One of the first things is asking yourself, what is your goal and who is your target audience and the way you want to show up? Like, what is your character that you want to portray? If you have a clear goal, if you have a clear target audience, and it has to match the character that you are. So, when you say if the recruiter comes and they don't like something like this, maybe that's just not the right match, right? You cannot become somebody else just to get a job somewhere at a certain company. I guess there are certain standards and social norms in general, but do we have to really follow them? And do they really have to set us back? I think you have to ask yourself what is more important, to stay true to yourself, to stay true to your values and ideas and the way you want to show up? Or is it actually more important to kind of fit in the perfect image of that recruiter, like the standard recruiter who's going to come across your profile? Believe there are companies that would appreciate this openness.
Well, it would have some stickers, covering the
Yeah,
sensitive
almost
issues
there.
of woman body.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's so true. And I love what you're saying about when the right, and this goes to this my first and second episode where people would also the career experts would also emphasize that it's very important to find something you like and you have a match with the job and company where you're gonna work. Because if you go to the company which doesn't care for your values or is strictly against whatever you believe, you will never feel good at whatever money you will get. Okay, there's some people who might disagree with me, but in general, you might be just feel unhappy, and after 3 months, you will come back to this project and re-listen all the podcast. So, why is personal branding is so important in today's job market?
There is this quote that says that it is not enough to be the best. In many cases, you also need to be the best known. And what does that mean? Basically, that you might have the perfect skills, you might be very talented, you might do your job very well, but if the right audience, if the right public is not going to know about it, then they're not going to see you. They're not going to see you as a candidate. Even if you have a job, your managers, your bosses, like people around, maybe they're not going to get it that you're the one behind all those great projects and achievements, right? Which sometimes are not daring to speak up. because we might say, oh, like somebody is going to tell that we're bragging and stuff like that. So we are becoming very modest. But on the other hand, when we are not speaking up, then sometimes nobody's gonna know that what we're looking for and how great we are. So eventually, right? So personal branding, when enabled, once we really understand what we want and establish our personal, it helps us with many things: being seen, being perceived as credible. So one thing is the visibility, but personal branding, right? When other people get that gut feeling, a certain gut feeling about us, and if we kind of spread the right info about ourselves, we're being perceived as more credible, right? More as experts, more trustworthy and stuff like that. So it's not only about the visibility, it's also about the credibility part. It also helps us with the networking part, right? It's also about opportunities that you might not expect. For example, 12 years ago, I was finishing my master's studies, and at that time, LinkedIn was not a very big channel, right? And I had a profile. I did not have a lot of experience, really not much, a couple of internships, and that was it. But the profile looked neat because I just kind of like put effort into it, right? And I got a message on LinkedIn. And that message was like from one of the professors here at ISM, at my university, the current work space where I work at. And we didn't know each other. And that message sounded like this, like, Dominika, would you be interested in PhD studies? And I was like, I've never applied. I mean, what is going on? And he was like, I want some project. I have like budget for a doctoral student in my research project, and I'm looking for someone. And I was just on LinkedIn in the search bar typing certain keywords, and your profile popped up, right? And at that time, right, 12 years ago, I thought it was a lucky coincidence. I just got lucky, somebody randomly found me. But when I started digging into the topic of personal branding, I realized it was not a coincidence, right? Because if I didn't have the profile, he would have never found me. If I had the profile, but it was not neat, if it didn't have the right keyword, he might have found my profile, but he perhaps would never approach me, right? To sum up, right? The visibility, the credibility part, the networking part, the opportunities part, even the salary negotiation part, right? If you're able to present yourself in a certain way, if you're able to explain who you are and what value you can create for a company, for the organization, like let social media alone, you're able to negotiate better conditions for your job. So there are so many benefits, right?
I want to emphasize, dear listeners, if you don't show up, then there's definitely someone else will show up. So why let this opportunity go? It's not about going being perfect, just doing what you know the best. Thank you, Dominika. So now we know what personal branding is, but where or how should someone start when building their personal brand?
We're about to cover my favorite part again, probably because of my academic background. I need frameworks to explain things. And this particular framework that I'm going to share, like it's kind of like a 10-step framework, I created that when I started consulting on personal branding. So we're going to start with the 10 C's, what I call 10 C's. So when somebody might think of personal branding, I think the most common misconception is to say, what should I post today? Like, what should I post today to boost my personal brand? And they start with the posting, they start with the content part, which is, I mean, content is fine. Content brings a lot of value. Content is communication and marketing, the promotion part and marketing in general. It's what helps you to spread the message. But we don't start there. We can start there and then, but we still have to go back to the basics. And the basics are the following. So the first question is basically about the challenge and the goal. So, what challenge are you currently experiencing? And what is your goal, right? So where do you want to go from that challenge, right? So in your case, I assume you said you're in search for a job, right? But when it comes to your goal, do you have a specific industry, the specific field in mind, the country wise, or in, like the term in which you might want to land that job? Do you have that?
Can I quickly answer that?
Yeah, yeah,
Yes.
exactly. Let's do that.
So the field I want to go is content marketing. And I feel like the more I build this project, I do want to go into this. The area is the world, which has at least 8 hours between my time and their time zone.
So when it comes to your goal, right? Let's say it's to land the job in the field of content marketing, the kind of the area, the geographic location. I hear it's kind of like wide. Can you make it a bit more specific and measurable? Let's say you might want to land this job in, let's say, the next 3 months. Is there an industry you would be most happy in to work in?
Entertainment industry. Let's put it this way.
Entertainment. That's good. So I think like the more you're able to narrow down your goal in this specific case, and the one person, like when it comes to the whole personal branding thing, we can have several goals. Some of them might be related to some personal professional ambitions, such as becoming the expert in the field. As for you, it's about the job find, etc. So the challenge that you're in is that you don't have that opportunity yet, but you want to find it in the smarter way. Then the second question is, who are your customers? But when we talk about customers, we can refer to the audience in general. So when you are working on your personal brand, who is the audience that you want to have a certain gut feeling of you? So, okay, the recruiters, right?
Yeah. Well,
What else
sure.
would it be?
Entrepreneurs.
Who might hire you for their startup business in the entertainment area, right? So basically, okay, recruiters, entrepreneurs, hiring managers, perhaps.
Chief marketing officers.
So there are several segments. And the reason why we're talking about this, right, even though we have several segments, probably some of them are more important when it comes to decision making when hiring someone. So in the later stages, when we're going to talk about the content part and communication, it's always easier to create content like from your personal account when you imagine who the target audience is, right? What do you want this target audience to hear about you in order for them to make this certain decision? And this is hiring. We could start thinking about, okay, what are those people, what problems are they trying to solve? So they need you to
Solve the problem.
exactly. Okay, so we have those two, right? The goal and the audience. The third element is basically the character, right? So the character, it's you. And what are the keywords? Like let's say 2, 3, 4 keywords about you that other people should get when they see you on social media. I'm just going to give you an example, right? When I think about other people and what they think about me, I want them to think about me in these kind of keywords. One of them is personal branding. Another one is marketing, I guess. Well, we could say that personal branding is part of marketing, but usually like to separate those. And then I also want them to understand my academic background, right? Kind of like this research, scientific, right? So this is the field that I'm in. I want them to get that. So in your case, right? Because on your LinkedIn, I saw a lot of keywords, and that's fine to have a lot of them, but some of them have to stick. Like some of them have to be kind of more visible than the others. So what about those professional keywords in your case?
I want to be known for AI marketing. Then I'm very interested in Web3 and blockchains. So that's also could be one of my keywords. And maybe a public speaker.
Perfect.
I like to go on stages and speak.
Perfect.
Here we go.
Thinking now and definitely. So that was like the third element, the character part. The fourth element is the credibility. So you just mentioned those keywords, right? The ones that you want to stand out with. What kind of your earlier experience basically proves that you're capable of doing that? What's your credibility here? Can you think of something?
Well, I have experience in marketing, and at the same time, I'm very interested in AI and taking courses about the foundations and working with AI. And the public speaking, I was a Toastmasters Club member, and I also did a couple public speeches on TEDx platform and schools, and I feel free in that.
One thing that you have to make sure that this credibility is evident. When people Google you, when people check your social media, when people go on your LinkedIn, this has to stand out, right? Because these are the keywords. And then you mentioned the supporting basically evidence that you have the credibility in those areas. The fifth element has to do with the channels, right? So we talked about your audiences, right? The segments. Where do these segments spend time? So LinkedIn is for sure, right? Are there any other channels, like both online and offline, where you could meet those target audiences?
I feel my audience might sit in different channels, but mainly maybe in X, also possible Discord or Telegram.
What you just touched upon is the consistency part. One channel might be dedicated more to one area, or whereas, like, let's say Instagram is more dedicated to the public speaking part. So just think about the channels that are like the top priorities, right? Because if we can have 10 channels, but we probably won't have enough time to manage it all. So, I mean, we can have neat profiles, but we want to focus on just a few. When it comes to online social media channels, I would say two is there a way to get into some other media platforms like international ones? Probably, right? And they might help you to be noticed, right? And also they might help you with the credibility part. Think about some conferences also, right? Where you should be going as a speaker, maybe just to be noticed, or as an attendee in networking events, certain associations, right? Certain like clubs, maybe. Basically, think about the channels that are beyond social media because those are equally important. Okay, social media is the easiest one. Helps you to become visible in a very wide circles, but think beyond that. So once we have the channels kind of clear and we tell ourselves which channels we should be on and we should focus on, then we start talking about content. But before the content part, before technical content details, I like to propose the element that's called clarity. And clarity is about your content directions, right? So, for example, if I want to be seen as a personal branding person, a marketing person, a professor, and if I started to talk about, I'm in the marketing field, but if I started to talk out of a sudden about, I don't know, sustainability and finance and logistics and operations, and I might have some insights about that just from reading something, but from hearing from others. But the other people who are following me, they might say, if she's talking about 10 different topics, like who is she? Right. So what are those content areas, the clarity part, what are those areas that you want to be known for, right? And then we can like think about the formats, like how you will like stand out with your content, right? So you have a clear directions, but what formats are you going to focus on, right? So is it like more about the videos? Is it more about like the long text forms? What about the visuals? Are you going to have a consistent style when it comes to your visuals? Are you going to have your signature emojis, right? And some people might say, why do we care about like emojis or the colors that we're like putting on our pictures and stuff like that? And of course, when we do that once, it's not going to matter. But if we do something consistently, so it helps other people to remember us better. So just an example from my own experience. So when I started Persona Cognita, my company, that was 6 years ago almost. So at first I started with a very kind of minimalistic visual identity. It was black and white because I liked minimal white aesthetics. But then I thought, okay, it's not helping me to stand out. So I got the very vivid purple identity for the brand. So what I did for quite a long time, and I still do that sometimes when I go to speak on stages or like in photo shoots for my brand, I wear purple. At least I have some purple thing in my outfit. So I use some purple emojis consistently. And okay, those are details. And some people might say, but this is not the main thing to focus on. But if why not? If it adds value, why not if it helps you to be remembered better, right? So when you think about your content part, not only on social media, but also when you think about the content, we might think about how we are seen in like visually. So what are those signature things that can help you to stand out? And this is the creative part. And this is leading us to the next element, which is consistency, right? There is like no number which is in the books or told by experts. I mean, experts can tell you things, but it's coming from their experience. It's not a rule. I would say the rule is to tell yourself how consistent can you be? What's the comfortable frequency for you? Right? Because if I'm going to tell myself I have to be on Instagram doing that talking head every day, 5 times a day, I'm not going to feel comfortable with that. Right? But when I tell myself I'm gonna do some kind of the posting on LinkedIn 3 times a week, I'm gonna show up on Instagram stories from time to time, but I know what are my standards. I'm comfortable with that, and I'm gonna stick to that. But we need to tell ourselves that because then we're gonna be more motivated to comply with it. And then you're gonna see the benefits. You're gonna like it. You're gonna see the feedback. You're gonna see that people are actually interested, and then you're gonna want to do more. I'm pretty sure about that. Almost the last elements is the context part. It's not about the audience, but as in the context element, the question is who are the people that are going to help you boost your personal brand? In your case, who are the people that are going to write your recommendation letters? Who are the people that are going to write your short recommendation on your LinkedIn profile? Like
Can I jump
what
in
people?
here very
Yeah,
quickly?
please. Yeah.
Oh, Dominika, you are so covering this episode without me. Like I'm just going through the questions. Like, okay, this one is covered, covered, covered. Crazy. But also, at the moment, I'm in this process where, by the way, job seekers they found me on LinkedIn in some keywords, and I'm going through this process right now. But one of the last process will be giving exactly what you're saying here. They will need 3 people recommendations, and I was like, what?
So when you think about the people who you're going to ask for recommendations, you have to think about who is of these people are going to actually strengthen this impression of me. So you have to think of who are those people, like the contacts that are going to help you strengthen your personal brand in this case, right? So it's the recommendations part, but sometimes we can think about this from the content perspective, right? So okay, sometimes I might share a piece of content with someone, and I know that person might be very credible or very visible, and it's going to benefit me, right? So if the person is very visible, when they're going to reshare it, when they're going to like it, when they're going to comment, so I'm going to be seen in their contacts lists feeds, right? If they're very credible, right, it's adding to my credibility as well. So we have to be smart about it and think about that from the content perspective too. And finally, the last element is the confirmation element, right? So in the beginning, the first step was to think about our challenge and our goal. And at the end, we have this confirmation element where we have to ask ourselves, so what's going to show me that my efforts that I'm putting into this are going to work out, right? Okay, so we might have the general, the big goal, you want to land a job, right? But the fact that you're already getting messages on LinkedIn because of your keyword is already some sort of confirmation. The fact that you're invited to interviews, it's already some sort of a confirmation. The fact that people are in adding you to your contact list, they're adding you as a connection, that's already some sort of the confirmation, right? So you have to think of all those little things because, and why it is important, right? Because we might have to wait for a longer time for that big goal to happen. But when we start appreciating the fact that, okay, something is going on already, there is a buzz going on. So we're going to be motivated more to keep our efforts up, right? So these are the last steps. I'm just going to do the recap. Okay, so we've got the challenge and the goal part. That's one. We've got the customers or audience part. That's the second part. The character, character first, yes, and then credibility, right? And then we've got channels, right? Then we've got clarity, content, consistency, contacts, and confirmation. And those are your 10 strategic steps, 10 strategic questions to think about. Of course, you can create your visual identities and stuff like that, and then it expands. But essentially, it's just like those 10 questions. And if you can answer that, you're going to be good.
Dominica, love it. Love it. I don't know if listeners can feel this, how much love I want to give you for this information. And you can feel how you know your topic so good. Because literally, I'm telling you guys, she went through my questions from fifth to the final 10th. And she's like, just covered everything what I wanted to ask you. Wow, wow. And that's how the professionals look like and sound like. And this is my goal, Dominica, to have a personal branding just like you. Dominica, what would you say to those people who are not confident in writing posts or creating content? How else can they show up and communicate their brand?
When it comes to social media and not be willing to be there, I think it's just I feel like in many cases it's just important to try. Just one thing, it cannot hurt. And I mean sometimes people are cautious because they say, "Oh, I don't want to like be very personal. I'm very an introverted and closed person." But you don't have to speak about yourself. Speak about the topic that you know, right? Although if you include a little bit more of you, if you're being authentic, if you're showing your face, that's one major thing, right? If you're posting pictures with you in it, it's gonna perform so much better because people just like to see other people, right? And we're curious individuals. But I mean, in case the person doesn't want to do that, you can just like stick to the expert level, right? And there is one more thing that I like to emphasize. It's also like about understanding that with our messages, with our personal brands, we can not only reach our goals, but we can help other people to reach their goals. And I think this is something very important that other people are not understanding.
Caring.
Exactly.
That's
Exactly.
what's it's important. It's like sharing is caring. Sometimes this level of competition jumps in like, oh, if I know more, then I'm better. No, if we all know more, we are all better. And that's what makes
Exactly.
this even all society better. Oh, amazing. That's amazing point, Dominica. Thank you very much. And I want to end this episode also strong.
That's
What's
good.
one thing you would recommend we all work on this week?
Mhm.
What homework would you give us?
So for sure, it would be like those 10 elements and those 10 questions to think about because this is the foundation. But also one homework that you already done, Giedre, is the part where you ask other people what perception they have of you. This gives you an idea, and you find out so many things. Of course, you might also want to ask people that are not so close to you, not necessarily the people that are very close to you. Like, for example, for you, right? You have a pretty big following on Instagram. So if you just did the open-ended question, like what are the professional keywords that you identify me with? I guess you would get also a lot of, yeah, you could do that, I think. And kind of do several polls, like, because it's also important to get that insight, not only from the people who know you very well, but also from the people who just see you, and you have like the so-called parasocial relationship where, I mean, they're following you. You might not know who they are, but they have a certain gut feeling of you. And why that part is also important, because okay, so the people who like you're in close connection, but the target audience that you have, like recruiters and hiring managers and CMOs, there are those followers that are external, right? But they might get that certain gut feeling. So you want to understand the current perception that your audience has of you, and then just check whether it's really something you feel you want to stand out with, right? So I think understanding the perceptions, also again coming back to the questions, coming back to understanding who you are, how you want to position yourself, what your goal is, what your target audiences are, and stuff like that is very important. So like that homework is about, first of all, understanding the current situation, so situational analysis.
I love how this project and talking to you, to career experts, and you all guys, without knowing each other, because you didn't listen to each other's talkings, you guys, all three of you so far, emphasize one important thing: talk to other people, get the feedback from other people about yourself, because sometimes us, ourselves, and especially us women, we see ourselves from such a negative perspective, from such a low self-confidence, that we don't know exactly how others sees us, and other people see us so differently, and it comes like deeply from my heart, from my experience. And Dominica, thank you for the homework. I'm exciting. I'm actually going to start Dominica's homework assignment right away after we finish this recording today. Dominica, before we go, after this episode, for sure, our listeners are going to want to connect with you and learn more. Tell us how they can work with you, or maybe where can they follow you?
Thanks, Gedra. I very much appreciate your kind words. What I usually say when I do like public speeches or podcasts, if something what I'm telling is going to help at least one person, then my job is done, right? Like it's good enough, right? So my favorite channel, and the one I spend most of my time on, like from social media channels, is of course LinkedIn. Just can find me with my name and last name, Dominika Vensuti. The main thing that we at Persona Cognita do, we do the so-called personal branding based employee advocacy programs and trainings for the organizations. So I've done some scientific research on that as well, and kind of confirmed that personal branding from employees' perspective, right? When personal brands were built by employees within the organization, it helps not only the employees, it helps the organizations as well, right? With the visibility, with the credibility, with hiring even, right? If I see somebody who I like on LinkedIn sharing something about their organizational culture, it's higher chances that I'm going to apply to that company because of the way the person shares the information. So this is something what we do. We train employees to leverage their personal brands, and then it's becoming beneficial both for the organizations and for the people themselves. So you may find all that information on my website. It's called personacognita.com.
And I'll leave all the links down in description, and you can also find them there. Before you go, make sure to subscribe and follow so you don't miss it. There are only 7 episodes left with the professionals, and next week we are learning networking. So thank you again for joining me on this journey. Keep showing up, keep being authentic, and keep believing in yourself. Until next time, thank you. Bye.